Hi guys, welcome to the Sunday live show. Thank you so much for joining in. I can see a few people here on Zoom as well as a few people have logged in at on YouTube channel as well. The YouTube channel, The Bright Orbit. Thank you so much for joining in this Sunday live show on medical device sales. And I am your host Pankaj Goyal with another exciting show today on medical equipment. And if you're here, just one request, guys, people who are there on YouTube as well as on Zoom, please introduce yourself so that I know who all are there. Just type in your name, your city, and your company name. And also, if you're here for the first time, just type in FT in the comment box. FT stands for first time, so that we'll know who all are there here for the first time. Just keep, yeah, I can see some of the people are already signing in and typing in their names, as well as if you're here for the first time, just type in FT in the comment box so that we can welcome you all for the first time. And a lot of people are here for our regular visitors, but I can see few people here for the first time. So people who are here for the first time, let me tell you a bit about this platform, this channel, the Bright Orbit. So this the channel is the Bright Orbit is all about career success and career transformation, especially in the field of medical devices and medical equipment. I can see a lot of people who are interested to get into this industry and obviously grow in their careers in medical device or medical equipment industry. So I started this channel in the month of May with an endeavor to help young talent and young aspirants to break into this industry and become a successful sales professional in medtech industry. So I have been doing the Sunday live show for last 3 months. Today is the 14th chapter of this show. So if you are here for the first time, you can watch all those previous live stream on my YouTube channel, The Bright Orbit. I can see few people are already there, but if you are here on Zoom, so you can also people who are there on YouTube, you can also join us on the Zoom live stream, as well as people who are there on Zoom, you can also watch the previous session after this session. Obviously, this after this live stream ends today, you can go and watch all the exciting and insightful sessions which we have done till now. So as I said, today is the 14th show. Initially I started doing this Sunday live show every Sunday at 5 o'clock in the evening, initially by myself only, but last 8-10 weeks we have been getting industry experts and veterans to talk to all of you. And I think it's been an exciting journey. If you have been here and if you have attended any of the previous sessions, just type in your experience in the comment box in the chat window so that we know what all you have learned, how has been your experience till now in joining in the Sunday live show. And guys, it will be a one-on-one conversation with an industry expert. So today also, we like the previous session, we have an exciting and very young and dynamic personality with us, and especially from medical device and medical equipment industry. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Arvind Srinivas to all of you. So Arvind Srinivas is a seasoned health tech professional with a deep understanding of medical devices and medical equipment industry, and not only from a sales or marketing perspective, but he has also very deep understanding, very knowledgeable professional from a technological and clinical standpoint as well. And he is a biomedical engineer. He did his graduation BTech in biotech in 2003, and then he did his MS in bioengineering in 2005 from Clemson University, and then he started as a R&D engineer professional in one of the largest medtech companies called Medtronic. So he started as a R&D engineer there in California, and then he worked there for about 6 years, and he developed one of the largest top revenue contributing products of Medtronic, which is in cardiology segment. You must have heard about the name of that product as well, which is a drug-eluting stent by the name of Resolute. So he has a good experience of working in the R&D and clinical side of it. And then he did his MBA in finance and entrepreneurship from ISP Hyderabad. And then he got into sales and marketing. He joined S3V vascular technology as a head of sales and marketing. And then he got into Philips, worked there initially in medical devices, Volcano and other devices. And then he got into in his current assignment, he is working as a business manager, Indian subcontinent for ultrasound business of Philips. So this is in nutshell about his experience, and you will get to learn a lot in today's show. So I am excited in hosting this show and presenting Mr. Arvind Srinivas to all of you. Mr. Arvind, thank you so much for joining us and interacting with the audience. So guys, please put in your questions, your comments, whatever it is. Just keep typing in the chat window, and it will be a two-way communication. In the end, we will be taking your questions as well. So once again, welcome Mr. Arvind Srinivas for accepting my invite and being here on the show and interacting with the audience. And would like you to kind of introduce yourself, explain some of the career defining moments for you in your life so far, so that probably the audience can gain some of the insights, learn from your own career experience.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pankaj. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. First, Pankaj, thank you very much for inviting me for this session. I think it's a wonderful session that you're doing here. To know that you've actually, started this during the COVID time, and you've done close to 14 sessions, and I happen to see most of your sessions. Uh, I think it's an honor to be part of this club where you have some of the industry stalwarts presenting. But I think what you're doing is something very, very, it's quite phenomenal, because you are helping a lot of people understand how they can grow in their career during these times. You are helping a lot of people imagine their future during these turbulent times. And I think that's a very noble cause. I was just telling you before we started, I wish I had this idea much when I was young, or if someone had done this, I could have attended a lot more talks to know the industry much better. So having said that, first, let me also thank the audience here. I know there is an IPL game going on. I know it's a Sunday evening, and I know tomorrow is a holiday as well. And I really appreciate a lot of you attending this call. I hope that I'm able to add some value for the time that you're going to contribute on this Sunday evening. So Pankaj, let me start off with, before I get to my career, what I want to do is I want to set some context into my background. And then I want to expand a bit about, how I got into the various roles that I eventually got into. I don't want to talk a lot about what I'm doing currently. I'm going to leave that to question and answers. But I really want to show the people here the path that I took, and hopefully that could help them decide on their future as well. So just to give some context, I've been born and brought up in Chennai. I come from a very typical middle class conservative family, if I were to put it that way. My early memories of childhood was actually my father taking me to school every day in his scooter, which was a kinetic Honda. If you look at the mid 90s, late 90s, that was a well-known scooter that was in Chennai and rest of India. So that was my early childhood memories. I used to go there, come back, study, and then play a bit. And just like most other, I'm going to take a risk here. Most other South Indian families, when I was in second year college, I was told that I don't have a choice but to take my GRE exam. So I guess my mindset was that after undergraduate, um, I didn't have a choice but to take my exam and see if I could go on for my master's. And today, when I see so many people doing their jobs and MBAs right after the undergrad, it's quite inspirational. I'm inspired by the level of maturity that the youngsters show today. So I did well in biology through my school. I just decided, let me take something in biology. And that time in 2000, biotech was really the upcoming space in the world. Really, the whole concept of cloning, genetic sequencing was really what the world was talking about. And I really wanted to jump into it. And so I did my undergrad in biotech in Chennai. And let me tell you that that's perhaps the first mistake I did, because within a year after I started, I realized that cloning and genetic sequencing was not my cup of tea. While I was doing well in biology, I don't think I took the right choice in doing biotech. And the reason being that right from that age, I needed to see something that I create come to life very quickly. I was a very impatient person, and that's how I'd put it. But 1 year later into biotech, I realized the whole concept of gene sequencing, cloning is something that you create and you probably see it 10, 15 years down the line, right? And I don't think I was cut out for that. I don't think I was made out to actually do something that I'm going to see 10, 15 years down the line. But I stuck through it, and I decided that I don't have a choice. I have to take my GRE, but I'm certainly not going to do anything in biotech when I do my master's. And so I did my GRE and I took the exams, and then I applied for bioengineering across various colleges. I lucked out. I got into a college in the US, which offered me a master's in bioengineering. And, during those times, getting funded, going to US education was a very, very expensive proposition. And so what I did the minute I got into Clemson is every day, and trust me on this, every day I sent out my resume to every single professor in Clemson bioengineering department, asking them, hey, professor, would you be willing to fund me? Can you please fund my education? I'm coming to the US. I want to study, but can you fund my education? I will work in your lab. I will do anything, but can you pay for my tuition fees? And I kept getting rejected. But I kept applying nonstop. And so there was this one professor who, I think about 2 weeks before I was to leave for the US, who mailed back and said, Arvind, I see that you've done some good work. I'd like to take you into my lab, and I'm willing to fund you. And I think that was perhaps the happiest day of my life during those times. Later on in the talk, I also want to talk about how success changes as you grow. But so that's what I did. I applied to the US. I went there. I finished my master's, and then I joined a company called Medtronic, which I'm sure a lot of people here know. Uh, in my master's, when that professor was willing to fund me, what really excited me at that point was he was researching on different coatings that you can put on stents, right? Which really excited me because here I was working on the various coats that I can put, polymers that I can put on stents. And then there was a company called Medtronic that was actually making their first drug-eluting stent, and they were looking for someone to come with a polymer background. But I want to also stop here a bit and focus a little bit about a key learning that I had during this time. So I graduated in 2005. When I graduated, I did not have a job. And after I graduated, it was almost about, I stuck it out in my lab. My professor was kind enough to continue keeping me in his lab for about 2 months, but I still did not get a job. And the way it works is if you don't get a job within 1 year, in those days, you will have to return back to India. So I went back to my professor, who was my idol. I went back to him and I said, hey, I'm not getting a job. I don't want to go back to India as yet. There's still a large loan that I need to pay. But can you help me in any way continue giving me a salary while I work for you, right? And he said, let me think about it. He came back a few days and he said, Arvind, I'm paying you so much, right? But you're not doing any more research. You're not a student of the college anymore. If you want me to continue funding you or giving you a salary, I can pay you 25% of what I was paying you, right? So overnight, my salary came down to 25% of what I was making. So if I was making $100, I was making $25, right? A month. And that salary I got was less than the home rent I was paying. So forget about my food, forget about my anything, my cell phone bill, anything. I was earning less than paying my house. And I think this is a very, very important lesson because at that point, immediately the tendency is to, play a victim mindset and say, hey, I've worked so much. I've worked for 2 years. I've worked so hard for you. And now you're not helping me when I really need you. I don't have a job. I might be kicked out of this country. And I still vividly remember my mom was there in the US and she said, Arvind, come back. I don't want you to be doing this. But I don't have an answer to this, Pankaj, at this point, but I stuck it out and I said, pay me 25% of the salary and I will do it. And guess what? My salary, the reason he paid me was he asked me to clean all the medical equipments in his lab, right? So here I was going from a research scholar to a guy who was cleaning the centrifuges, the guy who was cleaning all the test tubes and buying test tubes, really an administrator. And I think that was my first baptism by fire, if I were to put it, because it taught me that you can't play a victim mindset during your tough times. You can't be arrogant, and you can't, when you don't have the bargaining power, you got to stick and wait for your time. And most importantly, during this time is to be humble, right? And not continue saying that, hey, you know what, I'm trying my best and nothing is happening, because then it's a vicious cycle. It just keeps going down, down, down. The reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people here, the audience here today, we are in very tough times. We are going through COVID. These are tough times when we don't get what we want. We many times the answer is no for a lot of things that we ask. But it's important that we stick it out during this time and we bid our time, because when the time comes, we should be most prepared to launch ourselves. So all I did during those, 2 months after I graduated, he offered to give me a salary, and I worked for the next 3 months in that lab, cleaning all the equipments, continuing to do what I had to do. And I used to apply for jobs until I used to get a headache. I vividly remember those days because those were tough times. I used to get a headache looking at the laptop, and I used to keep applying for jobs, and I used to keep going for college campus hiring, just to find out if there was something I could do. And that was again, like, the most, I think, one of the best experiences I had, because while I kept applying for jobs, I also kept learning about what medical device industry is all about. I kept learning about what are the companies that are really focusing on in the near future. And one of the campus hirings I went, I caught a bus, left from San Francisco, from San Jose. I caught a bus, went to Stanford campus hiring. I wasn't even a student of Stanford, but I just decided I'm going to go to that college and see what their campus hiring is. And I went and gave my resume in the campus hiring for Stanford. And I got a call from Medtronic 2 days later. They said, hey, you've come with some polymer experience. We'd like to talk to you. I was really excited. I went there the next day. But the advantage I had was, in those 3 months when I was preparing, I knew everything about what Medtronic was trying to do with the drug-eluting stent program. So I was probably, in hindsight, well prepared for this interview, because I could talk a lot more about what I'd learned. I could talk about how I could add value to the company and to that department. So, and then, I joined Medtronic in 2005, December, when I graduated in May. The world was really nice. I finally got a job. I was happy. I could call my parents and tell them that life is settling down now. And then very quickly, I got hit by a big learning experience as well. And these are the two learning experiences that I think have shaped a lot of what I'm doing today in my role. The second experience was, the way it works in the US is, for you to work, you need something called a H-1B visa. You need a work permit visa. And in 2006, during those days, and it's there even now, but the whole visa process was a lottery method, right? Which means you apply for it, the government takes a lottery, and if your name comes up, you get the work permit visa. If you don't, you got to stick it out for another year. And now the process has become much simpler, because a student can work there for 2 years. When I was there, a student could only work for 1 year. So I applied for the visa, and as luck would have it, I missed the lottery. I did not get it, which meant that I had to come back to India for 6 months, work here, and then if Medtronic was really kind enough, they would take me back. And there were only 2 people from India in that batch of people who joined Medtronic who did not get a visa, myself and another friend of mine. And so I was devastated, to be honest, because I'd done all the hard work. And in March, I missed my lottery, which means I had to leave by August and not come back. And there was no guarantee that Medtronic would take you back, because if you go for 6 months, if you work, you never know how the visa process is going to work. So I reached out to my boss and I said, hey, I need help. I've tried my best in these 6 months. I'm working hard, but I need help. And his name was Scott Doig. He's a Canadian. And he said, Arvind, I need some time. I don't know if I can do anything right now. At this point, you will have to go back to India. My colleague was told that he has to go back to India, and he left to India, right? And I was just 2 weeks away from leaving to India, and Scott came back to me. I don't know what he saw in me. Again, I don't know. But it was 7 months since I worked at Medtronic. And he came and told me, Arvind, we figured out something for you. What we'll do is we will send you to the factory in Ireland and go build stents there. Go build catheters. You're not an R&D engineer anymore. And once you finish building that for 6 months, we'll bring you back here on your work permit visa, right? And I think at that point, Scott was God to me, because I don't know what I would have done if I had come back. My life would have changed. I might have done something completely different, right? But he took that bet in me, and he sent me. And to all the people here in the audience who are wearing Tyvek kit, PPE, and going out now, I used to do that in 2006 every day. because we had to maintain a clean environment. So I used to go there, and here was this guy who's done his master's, who joined R&D engineer, and I was in the factory line building stems every day, every single day, polishing them and building them for 6 months. And I came back to the US after 6 months, and I asked Scott, I don't know how I'm going to pay you back, but you've changed my life. And Scott said something very insightful that day. He told me, Arvind, the best way you can pay me is pay it forward. And so a lot of what I do today, the most exciting part of what I do today is to actually interact with my team and to see how I can challenge them and how I can grow them in different spaces. And I think that is the most satisfying part of my career, to see my team grow and achieve hopefully greater success in what I have. So that was something that was not inborn in me. But when I saw Scott take that bet in me and change my life, I promised myself that I would take bets in other people and hopefully influence their lives as well. And so I did this for the next 5 years. I worked as a loyal soldier to Scott. I did everything he did. He told me to. I worked hard in R&D. We built, like you said, we built the stent called Resolute. And I worked right from CE mark to FDA approval. And this took me about 5 years at Medtronic. And in 2011, so the best part about it is I built something I could see it in the market. I could see it implanted in patients, right? There were so many patients I spoke to who had no clue who I am, but who came to me, during the Medtronic customer visits, and came to me and said, "Hey, I've got a stent that you built, and thank you so much. You've changed my life," right? And that is our purpose. That's our passion of what we do today. So I did this for about 5-6 years, and then I decided I want to change. I want to do something different. And at that point, I think my wife and I, we were just married in 2010, and we were in this flux on whether we should come back to India, whether we should continue working in the US. And I think the impatient part of me brought me back to India, to be honest, because I saw life in the US continuing in R&D, waiting for green card, continuing with work, and I was not satisfied with that. So I applied for an MBA in India. I had not worked in India until then. I figured that an MBA would give me a good segue to come back into the Indian work environment. So I applied for an MBA. I got into a business school in Hyderabad. I did my MBA there. And then I actually got into Philips right after MBA. But, it's a very important lesson that I learned here. And, hopefully I can share it, and a lot of you can also understand this or connect with this. I got an offer from Philips. It was a very, very good role. It was a leadership program in Philips. And I declined it because at that point, my view was, I worked with a large company like Medtronic. I, worked with on various different geographies. I want to work with a startup. Let me see how a startup is. And so I made the decision to go to a startup. And that was the second mistake I did after my biotech. But in hindsight, let me tell you this. I think I would do both of these again because they taught me a lot more than what I would have probably learned if I had not done these. The startup, what happened was within a year and a half, the startup moved to 3 different places. We started in Hyderabad, it moved to Bangalore, then it moved to Mysore. We ran out of funds very quickly, and I was managing the sales team. I was the first employee in the startup. It was started by my colleagues in ISB. And so I was really excited, and I joined them. And I had a very young family. My son was 1 year old, and here I was moving them from Hyderabad. We were thinking of moving to Bangalore, and they were moving to Mysore. And while my role was very fancy, head of sales and marketing, I was the delivery boy. I was the operations guy. I used to write the challans when we give a device to a doctor. I used to be the clinical specialist. I used to be a sales rep, a medical rep, going to the doctor and saying, "Can you please use my medical device?" I was the operations guy helping the team. And so I scrapped a lot in that whole experience. And, there were days, I'll be honest, when I thought to myself, I came back after a very lucrative job in Medtronic. I've got an MBA, and I was not doing something that I thought I would be doing when I came back. I was scrapping a lot. But that, again, was probably my second baptism of fire. I got refined. It made me really hunker down when things are not going well. It really made me work hard and see how we can turn the situation around. And so then I called back my colleagues in Philips. They were kind enough to give me a role again. And I'll tell you this, when I interviewed with the head of Philips then, this person called Krishna Kumar, the CEO, I interviewed with him. He offered me the role the next day. I joined and I asked him, Krishna, what is it that you saw in me that actually wanted you to hire me? And he said, I saw that you scrapped a lot in your startup experience, and that's what I wanted. So all the while I kept thinking that's the biggest mistake I made in joining the startup. I think that was perhaps the only reason why I got hired into Philips. And that I keep remembering that every time I have a tough time, because we need to scrap and make sure that we turn the situation around. And that's it. I'm at Philips now. I joined in 2014. I started as a product manager in cardiology. I think given my experience in Medtronic, they wanted me to join in cardiology. And then we had this wonderful experience where we acquired a company called Volcano, which are direct competitors to some of the folks here. But this was a company we acquired in 2015, and I learned something again. There was while I talked about the fact that I enjoyed creating a product and seeing it implemented very quickly, I think Volcano taught me that I truly enjoyed scaling a business quite significantly. And so we started this company at a very, very small level. It was about a crore or 2 crores in India when we took on Volcano. But we exited in the next 2 years. We grew that company about 10x that division. We built a team, a sales team, a clinical team. I was working the regulatory team to build the warehouses and get the regulatory approvals. Um, and so that's my journey in Philips. After Volcano, I joined ultrasound. I'm now managing the ultrasound business for the Indian subcontinent. I think I'm lucky that I have a fantastic team. It's a team of high performers. And a lot of my focus today goes on actually creating the culture and retaining the culture in the team than actually telling people what to do, because they probably know what to do better than I do. And so in my role at this point, I just want to make sure that we maintain the culture and we help each other. And hopefully this team pays it forward when they grow up into people leaders as well. So that's my background in a nutshell, Pankaj. But yeah, it's been a wonderful experience at Philips so far. I've loved everything about it. I think what I really enjoyed the most, like I said, is the fact that I get to work with some really exciting people. The people management part of it is very exciting. I get a kick out of meeting with customers and seeing how the market shapes up or what Philips can do to address some of their needs. I really get a kick out of it. And so when people ask me today, what is your long-term goal? What is it that you think you'll do? I tell them, as long as I'm in a customer-facing role, I'm the most happiest, uh, because that's a very challenging role, but at the same time, very exciting as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear your story, and I think I was getting a lot of kicks and goosebump hearing your story, and I think a lot of people probably can relate to your story. The mistakes which you said is like getting into biotech first, and then probably joining a startup in the at that time probably you were feeling those were your mistakes, and same happens with most of us. But when we kind of transition from that period and we get into the future, and when we see it in the hindsight, probably those mistakes over the few very defining moments in our careers, those mistakes probably made us the person we are today. Okay, so I think that was a great learning, and also the kind of challenging situations which you had in your life just after completing your grad in US and not having a job for 6 months, and it is very easy. And the same probably this is not the situation right now in that kind of certain same way, but yes, for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people who are there on this show today would be having similar kind of situation facing because of COVID pandemic impact, and a lot of people probably have lost their jobs. So it's very essential that, as you mentioned, Arvind, that don't get into the victim mindset. Okay, I interact with a lot of people who are there in pharmaceutical medical device industry. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and I see this victim mindset. Okay, so guys, very important, and I think that is till now in this last 15-20 minutes, this is my biggest learning, that don't get into the victim mindset. If you don't have a job, just stick around and keep playing your game. Okay, keep keep pushing hard, keep putting your best foot forward every single day, and do whatever best you can do, as Arvind has done in those tough times. So that is great. And I can see some of the comments as well, like some of the previous guests. CPL is there, so he's also mentioning don't allow victim mindset to set in tough times. So great insights, Arvind, who went through the tough grind himself. So again, thank you so much, CPL, for joining in on. She is there on YouTube. A lot of people are watching on YouTube. So guys, what do you think? What are your key takeaways from these life events, these insightful learnings from Arvind's career and his life? Just keep putting in your comments and your insights, your learnings from this first kind of talk till now. Just let us know what are your key takeaways from this session till now. So moving on to Arvind, I would like to, a lot of people, I have done personally a lot of sessions on medical devices, and you are the one person who have worked both in devices segment as well as now you are managing capital equipment business in Philips. Okay, so what is your experience when it comes to medical equipment industry? Can you give us a brief overview? What medical equipment industry is all about? What are the opportunities available for people to grab in?
So, great question, Pankaj. Before that, I want to add one more point on the victim mindset, and hopefully that makes it easier for people to deal with this situation when they encounter it. I think it's most important to realize that as you grow in your career, your seat is going to get hotter. It's inevitable, right? And it's important to note that when I say seat is going to get hotter, it's a very generic term, and I'm doing that on purpose. But it's important to note that today it might be you're not having a job. Tomorrow it could be that you're not performing well. Day after it could be that there is a big health issue that you got to deal with, right? Which is completely unexpected. Um, so these kind of situations will happen, and it's very very important to know that it's inevitable that you're going to live your life by having some challenges, and the challenges are going to grow significantly as you grow in your career. And you have to come in terms of the fact that every one of those challenges you will have to deal with it, because no one else is going to deal with those challenges for you. No one, right? There are people who can come and advise you, people who can give you suggestions on how to deal with it, but you are the only one who's going to deal with the challenge. And guaranteed, there are 1,000 ways to deal with these challenges. But the one way to not deal with this challenge is play a victim mindset, because then it's a vicious cycle. You are guaranteed to only go down and down by victimizing everyone around you or by blaming everyone around you, but not looking inward at yourself. So I think it's very important, especially for the people, the youngsters here who have joined this call. Uh, we talk about midlife crisis in 40s. In the 70s, midlife crisis was actually in the 50s. Today, we talk about midlife crisis in the 40s. And I'll tell you, by the time we get to 2030, midlife crisis is going to be 30s, right?
Absolutely.
Because pressure is increasing day in, day out. Our expectations are much higher. We see a lot of people. Social media has brought the world much closer. So it's very important that you come in terms with that right now, so that when that situation comes, you're very well prepared. And no amount of challenges will actually deter you or bring you down if you come in terms of the fact that you're going to get through those challenges when that comes. So
Absolutely.
I know I digressed a bit,
No,
and
no,
your
no.
question.
It's okay. I think that is very important for you to say that, and it's very relevant for a lot of us. And one more important thing is, like, I would also like to reinforce what you said is, like, pay it forward. Okay, people who are in position to help somebody, do that. So it would be kind of paying it forward is the only mean by which we can sustain, we can help more people, and obviously we will also, because you never know when you get stuck into a particular situation, you would the way probably some people have helped you, if you also help those people, I think it will be a great value add to the society. So
Yeah.
another great insight, that, yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. So your question was on the medical equipment industry and my views on the medical equipment industry,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So let me start by saying that the medical equipment industry is, and I'm biased here, but perhaps the best industry to work in if you're in healthcare. And I really mean that. I know, Pankaj, a lot of your audience here are from the medical device industry as well. And that's a great industry. I've been in the medical device industry as well. But what I like about, so let me first give my overview on the medical equipment industry, right? So when we talk about medical equipment industry, what do we speak about? What do we mean by saying medical equipment? I see that the term medical equipment is very loosely used, where they also talk about medical devices in many cases, right? And let me define medical equipment in my mind. When I say medical equipment, I'm talking about the equipments that are used in treatment and diagnosis, which are MR, CT, cath labs, ventilators, patient monitors, those monitors that you see in the ICU. These are the medical equipments that we talk about, right? And then we have the medical devices, which are the implantables, or in some cases, even the consumables, like the catheters, the balloons, right? And these are the medical device industry. Now, the medical equipment industry is a fairly large industry in India. What I like about it is there are three dominant players. There is Philips, there is GE, there is Siemens. There are, of course, a lot of local players, but this is an industry where these three players have really set the benchmark, right? And it's been the barriers to entry has been really, really high to enter these industries. And that's the reason, if you look at each one of these companies, they have been very, very long-lasting companies. Philips today is a 120, 130-year-old company. GE is a 150-year-old company. Siemens is a very old company as well. Because the barriers to entry for someone coming in and taking these or disrupting these industries are actually very, very high. That's not to say that these industries cannot get disrupted, but the barriers are quite high. And what I really like about the medical equipment industry today is the fact that this is an industry where you truly get to create a market. And why do I say that? I'm comparing this to a medical device industry. Now, if you are, let's assume that you have got a contract for stents or balloons in a certain hospital. You're going to get repeat usage from that hospital, right? The customer is going to continue using it. The doctor, the cardiologist is going to continue using it. Now, is your market share within that hospital high or low? That certainly is very challenging. That's the product, that's the place where you bring value. The salesperson brings value. But the medical equipment, you sell an equipment, you probably don't meet that customer for the next 5 years or 7 years, right? And these are very, very high capex industries. These are, you're asking a customer to invest close to 10 crores, 12 crores in setting up these equipments. So the reason I find this very exciting is you're actually going and convincing a customer saying, hey, you absolutely need an MR in your hospital. You absolutely need a CT in your hospital. And this is why you need it, right? It's not going and telling the customer, you're doing MR, now let's see how many patients you can bring. It's actually creating that need for that customer. And that's very exciting because there's a lot more skill set that I see that's very exciting and challenging, but that's required by a salesperson there. One is a person who goes there and sells a large equipment first needs to have this phenomenal ability to build relationships with the C-suite level, right? They need this ability that we call high calling, which means you have to be in front of a CEO or the head of purchase and be able to convince them on why they need to set up this new department within their hospital. And if they are setting up, why they need to invest 5 crores in your company and not any other company, right? So that's a very key skill set that I look for when a salesperson goes and sells these equipment. The second part of the medical equipment industry is, more and more, if you look at the industry 15, 20 years back, we were selling boxes. We go sell an MR and come out. Then 10 years back, our customers started asking more and more for, hey, you know what? I want to have extended warranty in this. Don't just sell me an MR and go away. I want an MR with 3-year warranty. That changed the way we sold. And today, customers are saying, I want an MR, I want extended warranty, and I want deferred payment, right? I just don't want to buy a box and go away. So there's a lot more that's exciting, that's challenging in selling these equipments to a customer than what it was maybe 20 years back. And I guarantee you 10 years down the line, customers are going to say, perhaps I want you to share the profitability with me, right? Which means that if I use my MR, I give you my profit. If I don't use it, you share the risk with me, right? And we see that trend already changing. We see that happening already in the industry. So it is a very complex industry. It's an industry that requires a lot of skill sets that I think are very unique to the medical equipment, to the healthcare industry. It's a very, very strong B2B focused industry. And that's something very important to remember. A lot of times, we say that, oh, you sell an MR or CT and then you don't visit the customer. But that's where the relationship comes in, because these customers someday refer an MR or CT to another customer. These customers also want to set up their own MR as a separate clinic, right? And you need to handhold them. You need to engage with them constantly during these times so that they remember you and they call you first to the table. I always tell my team, it's okay if we lose a deal on the table, but I would hate it if we're not called to the table. Then that's a failure on our part. That's a failure in our relationship building. So that's in a nutshell the medical equipment industry. Very exciting space to be in. And as long as we have customers who are continuing to invest such large amounts of money, they're trusting us. I think it's going to be difficult for us, but that's the challenge. That's the exciting part.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned about that managing the stakeholders, like the people, CEOs and the purchase head of the hospital, is obviously, and cracking these big deals is, I think, a lot of patience, a lot of methodological sales has to be there, and each process has to be followed diligently when you try to pursue these 5 crore, 10 crore, maybe 50 crore deals as well. A lot of other stakeholders, like government is getting a big stakeholder now. A lot of large equipment deals are happening with the government. A lot of infrastructure spending is happening in the government field as well. So people have to be well versed with these different skill set. So we would like to, I think, understand from you in terms of the sales process, since you have worked both in devices and equipment. So how the sales process is different in medical equipment industry. If you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the way I'd put it is, and I worked with Medtronic, but I would lean towards my sales experience at Volcano, because that was a hardcore medical device as well. And then also my sales experience in medical equipment with ultrasound and cath labs and everything. So, I talked about the medical equipment salesperson, Pankaj. He or she needs to develop that capability of high calling. That relationship building is very, very important. But when I look at someone for sales in medical equipment today, I look for someone with a very strong marketing mindset and a very strong finance mindset as well. Because I clearly see medical equipment sales moving more and more towards how can I add value to the customer outside of just selling an MR or a CT. And for that, I'm looking for someone with very, very strong marketing mindset, because they always need to put the customer first and understand what are the customer's pain points and how can I address that, right? And the reason I said financial solutions is because of what I just spoke about. I see that today, if you look at Philips, our sales team, I would perhaps say that they're one of the most strongest finance focused sales team. You come to any of the sales guys in Philips and ask them about deferred payments, or how can we provide a lower interest rate to our customers. If you go to a Chroma today, you buy a TV, they tell you the TV is 80,000 rupees. You go Bajaj Finance and we will give you a 0% interest rate, right? And they give you a 6-month installment, they give you a 12-month and 18-month. And I'll tell you, that's how medical equipments are moving. And that's how the industry will move in the next decade or so. There will be customers coming and asking, okay, this is what I want, but I can't afford to pay this cost upfront. How can you support me? And so we are already exploring some very, very innovative solutions where we're trying to do pay-per-use, we're trying to bundle external warranty, we're giving a much lower interest rate and so on. So this is what I see. These are the two big skill sets, marketing mindset and finance. I take customer relationships for granted, because if you don't have relationships, if you don't have the ability to build relationships with customers, then you should not be in sales, let alone B2B or B2C, you should not be in sales, right? Because that's key. Now, it changes a bit when you come to medical devices. Now, in medical devices, in my experience, there's not so much of high calling. There's more of the end user engagement. So if I go and sell a Volcano catheter, or if I sell an IFR wire, right, I need to make sure I convince that end user to use my product every time a patient comes, which means I need to have two levels here. One is I need to be strong, much stronger than a medical equipment guy in the clinical knowledge. And if you look at the medical device industry, there are a lot more clinical papers coming out than what happens in the medical equipment industry, right? Almost every second month, there's a new study on stents. Every second, there's a new study on sutures and so on, right? And viability or safety of these. So it's very important that that salesperson has a very strong understanding of the latest clinical developments that are coming up in the medical in the specific product that they sell. So in terms of medical devices, there's certainly the part that he needs to be in front of the customer as much as possible. And I'll tell you this, I think the medical device industry, the salesperson also requires a lot more perseverance. And I'm saying this with I'm saying this also a bit loosely, but the reason I'm saying this is their focus is to see how you can squeeze the market share in that specific hospital, right? A cardiologist might want to use a Medtronic, a Boston Scientific, a J&J, an Abbott. But what does it take for that cardiologist to make sure that they use only Medtronic every day or a Boston every day? So you are there every day in front of the customer, day in and day out, right? And what I see now is the question is also, are you able to predict what these customers are able to do? For a medical device person, I see that as a very strong skill set they need to have. And I'll tell you this, a great example is if you look at what happened in 2016, the government actually capped the number of stents. They capped the prices on stents, right? They capped how much a stent should be sold for. And and that's a great way of predicting the industry because the minute they capped the stent, Philips was in a super position because we had a value cath lab. And we went after all the individual cardiologists around the country in tier 2, tier 3, and said, right now, there's no point in investing on high value cath lab because the stent prices are capped, right? But you still want to do it because there's a demand. So let's invest, let's come up with a low value cath lab that can do your basic angioplasties. And at the same time, gives you a reasonable ROI. And we shot through the roof in selling those value cath labs, right? 2017, 2018, we shot through the roof. Now I ask people here, I ask the audience, what do you predict will happen because of COVID? How can you change the value you add to the customer? I was in a meeting a week back with one of the key opinion leaders in a hospital in Chennai. And it's perhaps one of the largest COVID treatment hospitals in Chennai. It's a private hospital. And so I was asking him, they were looking to buy an MR, they were looking to buy a cath lab, some ultrasound systems. And I asked him, this is a very, very tough time to make such a big investment. And how are you doing this? What's driving you to make this investment? And he said something very insightful. He said, Arvind, we've realized as we're treating more and more COVID patients, there's a lot of COVID-related extensions that we're seeing in these patients. We're seeing patients who have COVID are coming in with liver diseases. We're now treating patients for diabetes. The number of diabetic patients we're treating are double the number of diabetic patients we were treating pre-COVID. A lot of COVID patients are coming with heart ailments, right? And COVID is a lung disease, but we're seeing a lot of extensions happening. And so that's got my mind thinking, where does Philips play today in heart? Where do we play in liver? Because, that's the area we should be focusing on, right? Next year, when COVID dies down, a lot of these patients are going to go back because of these COVID-related ailments. And are you in the right place at that point to make sure that these customers, your doctor is well prepared to reach that demand? And when you have those kind of conversations with the doctor, you build a lot of credibility, you build a lot of reputation. And doctors like to see that in salespeople. They do not like to see people come and have transactional sales and go away. That's the last thing anyone wants to have. If you were a customer, right, and if you were going to buy something, the last thing you need is some guy coming telling you, hey, I've got this car, this is the cost, I'll give you a discount, buy it, and I'll forget you, right? You want that person to have a relationship with you. You want that person to come back to you and say, hey, your car is due for service, can I help you? It's a different department, but can I help you? We've got this new sound system in the car. Do you want to install this new sound system? Like how we have new softwares, right? So I think that's very important. When I say relationship building, please don't look at it as going to the customer every day and saying hi. That is not relationship building. The world is changing. Customers want solutions from us. They don't have all the solutions they need. So when I say relationship building, I expect the sales team to actually go out there and talk to the customer of what they think will be the future. talk to the customer what they think will happen because of COVID, and then place Philips and the customer right there ready. So when that moment happens, we can capture that and we can be ahead of the curve.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Thank you so much for kind of pinpointing the differences between the device and equipment sales. And as you mentioned, the high calling and medical devices, probably the more of clinical stuff happening, more of day-to-day affair, perseverance, and obviously predicting on how you can add value to the customer. I think these are very important perspective which you gave to the audience. And obviously the skill set which you mentioned outside of sales, which is like customer relationships, probably marketing and finance, which is more into, you need to have that finance mindset or the marketing mindset for you to able to crack these deals or to sell these high end equipments. I think that gave a wonderful insights into the skill set as well. And so guys, open to the so the question which Arvind threw to all of us is about predicting how we can add value to our customer post COVID era. So just keep putting in your responses. So let's all do this kind of prediction. And what do you think? Just let us know in the comments. People who are there on YouTube and people who are there on Zoom, just keep typing in your prediction. What do you think? How you can add value to your customers post COVID area, and how do you think it is going to change the world? Especially people who are working in sales. How do you think the customer relationships? How do you think the sales model are going to change in the future, and how you can add value in the post COVID era? So just keep typing in your responses. Will if there are some interesting responses, we'll also take in your comments as well. So moving on from here, Arvind, you talked about the differences between medical devices and equipment. And what I learned so far is the medical equipment sales process is entirely different. Obviously, there are other angles when it comes to having a finance angle and all this stuff, but it is like selling big ticket items like CT, MR. It is complete sales funnel management process which is there. Okay, and a lot of folks who are here on this show, I understand they have probably not sold capital equipments, and a lot of folks would be probably interested to get into the capital equipment or medical equipment industry. So tell us kind of briefly about the sales funnel management process, like lead generation and all those stuff which is there. So would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, and that is a very, very important part about that's a very important part about equipment. And that's also a very important part about B2B business in general. Funnel management, lead generation, sales is very, very important. The way I explain this to my team, Pankaj, is I'll tell you this. Um, there's invariably what you want to do. I hope for a salesperson, when they define what is their success criteria, it's not just their targets, it's not just their top line or revenue targets, but I hope they also look at where are they in terms of market share, because that is really the number one thing to know. Are you doing well? Are you growing fast in the market, or are you growing on par with the market? If the market grows at 10% and you've grown 10% that year, it's a good job, but not much, right? You've just rode the wave. You've gone ahead with what the market has done. But what we really appreciate, what I really appreciate, is if you are able to grow fast in the market, and that is something that's very, very important. Now, how do you define market share? I'll come to your lead management. I want to give some background on this. How do you define market share? Market share essentially is your visibility into your win rate, right? If you have, let's say the market is 100 customers, right? Your visibility in that market is 50. You've seen 50 customers. There are 100 customers in India. You've seen 50 of them. Out of the 50, you've won 20 customers. You won your deal. You've closed 20 deals, right? So 50 into 20, your market share is 10%. Very simple. If you see 100 and you won maybe 20, your market share is 20%, right? So personally, for me, a lot of what we do in Philips today is having relentless focus on visibility. Because when you have visibility, you're seeing more of the market. And then, of course, win rate comes with, what are the skill sets your sales team have? How are they enabled by the clinical team? How are they enabled by the marketing team, and so on? And there's a lot more that goes into it. But the number one thing that each sales guy should be looking at is saying, how can I increase my visibility? And it's a very, very fragmented market. Today, India is a very fragmented market, right? And during these times, to increase visibility is where the whole sales management funnel comes to. If you say you've seen 50 people and you won 50% of that deal, you're still only at 25% market share. It's not your number one thing is, hey, how can I go from 50 to 70? How can I go from 70 to 80? And then maybe if I maintain my same win rate, I'm increasing my market share. So, market share is something that's very difficult. I'll tell you that also. We don't have any reporting companies or any third-party company that report market share very clearly in India. In medical equipment, they do it to a certain extent, but they don't do it on a micro or geographical level. And I rely on the sales team to actually come and tell me what is their market share, which means they should know exactly how many customers they've seen or what is their market visibility. Now, so market visibility is now connected to your lead generation, your funnel management. Now, the way we do this is the number one aspect of your funnel management is how many extended arms and legs do you have in the industry? What do I mean by this? Let me give you an example of ultrasound, right? There are 9,000 boxes being sold in a year. Ultrasound, 9,000 boxes being sold in a year. I have 40 sales team members in my team. There is no way on this earth that 40 sales team members can see 9,000 deals. It's impossible, right? I cannot expect them to see 9,000 customers, no matter how hard we drive them. So then the question is, how do I see 9,000 customers? So that's where you look at your extended arms and legs. So the number one thing I ask my team is, how are your channels enabling you to see more customers? What is the customer segment that your channels are enabling you? Are your channels only seeing customers that you are seeing? In that case, they are of no value. Are your channels seeing different customers who you're not seeing, maybe in a different segment, different value segment, maybe in a different geography that you don't have reach to? How are they helping you do that, right? The second is the relationships that you built with your customers. That's a very, very important source for funnel management also, because they actually give a lot of leads. Today, if you look at ultrasound, a lot of our customers working in large hospitals want to set up their own clinic. And they call us and say, hey, I'm interested in setting up an ultrasound clinic. Show me what ultrasound system should I buy? A lot of customers are also referrals for other customers, wherein people who want to set up in tier 2 and tier 3, they refer to our customers and say, hey, I want to buy it. But are these customers coming to you and are they referring your product, right? And that's where your relationships matter a lot. I keep harping on relationship because I think this is the number one factor required in a B2B business, B2B sales especially. And the third part, which I call an inside sales team, but that could be your clinical team. That could be your marketing team. What is your marketing team doing to bring deals, customers to your sales team, right? Now, if you look at what we do in ultrasound, our marketing does heavy, heavy digital campaigns on a monthly basis. We go out on social media, we launch new products, we invite doctors, we do it on Facebook, we do it on LinkedIn, we do it on Twitter. We do a lot of social campaigns. And then we bring in those leads and we share it to our sales team. But we also then follow up with our sales team and ask them how many of these customers have we called up, right? So there are essentially three big sources that I see. One is your channels. One is your existing customers. Are they referral centers for you? And the third is, how is your marketing team enabling you to bring these leads? But this is just one part of it. This is how you create your leads. Funnel management is not just creating leads. Funnel management is also seeing those customers and taking them to the next, converting those leads to opportunities. That's how I'd call it, right? Are these customers now willing to buy your system? And that's the difficult part. That's where you have to engage with those customers. You have to leverage your channel partners to engage with those customers and reach out to them and see if they're willing to buy your system. So once you convert these leads to opportunities, and then you convert those opportunities to orders, that is the best method or process that I believe a salesperson can follow. So when I look at sales management, I look at 4 key metrics. How many leads are you creating every week? It's very important that you as a sales team member should have a target. And the way you should do it is, if you have a target of, let's say, 1 crore, You should then back map and say, what are the ticket size of your product? If you're selling a product for 1 crore, and if you're selling a product for 10 lakhs, you need to sell 10 systems, right? Which means you need to see a minimum of 10 customers to close the deals. Now ask yourself, what is your win rate in the previous year? Have I won 30% of my deals? Have I won 50% of my deals? If I won 30% of my deals, I should see 1:3 customers. So if I have to create 10 leads, I should see 30 customers. Then only I will close 10 leads, then only I will reach my target of 1 crore. So that's how I map the sales funnel for my team. We look at the number of leads we create every week. We look at how many of those leads we converted opportunities. And third, we look at how long does it take for those opportunities to convert to orders, because that's a very important metric. If I convert to opportunities, they take me 1 year, then I'm not doing a good job in selling these products. So immediately I can go deep dive into that particular salesperson's performance and understand why the velocity is so late. So if you have a strong grip on these three metrics, I think you'll be very good in sales management. You'll be very good in funnel management. And just to repeat again, is the number of leads, number of opportunities, and how long does it take for you to close the deal. These you will have to focus relentlessly every day. And if you do this, if you have a very strong grip, if your boss calls you tomorrow and asks you how many leads you created last week, and if you know the number, you're a sales guy I want in my team. That's how I put it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Arvind, for explaining it so beautifully. Like you nailed it down and the way you started from the market share, and obviously the visibility is an extremely important factor we all probably miss out on. And it's like looking the entire market out there is the first thing which a salesperson should know. And he should, the way you explained is that through the channel, through your existing customer, getting a referral from them is a important way for you to kind of seeing the market. That is the first, and obviously increasing your win rate, and how long does it take, how many leads are you generating every week, how many customers are you seeing. I think you explained it beautifully. So guys, if you have any questions regarding sales funnel management, just type in the comment box, so we will be taking your questions in the end. So just let us know if you still have any question, or if you have not understood any part of it. Arvind, we have got some responses as well to the previous questions which we asked, is regarding the changes which they expect in terms of how they can add value to the customer. Some of them are feeling that COVID is just a transition period, and as things are getting normal and new, now people and doctors would be aware and purchase more of equipment and to improve the quality of life of their patient. And CPL is there, he is mentioning probably the virtual selling skills is going to become very important, and some steps of sales may move completely to virtual post COVID era. So bang on CPL, I think that's a very important thing. And like in this show as well, you can see now we are all of us are getting connected through digital mediums. Virtual is the way forward, which yes, we can expect going forward. So thank you so much for just keep putting in your responses, and just let us know what do you think about sales funnel management. Some of the responses I got is like giving more discount to the customer, getting advance payment, and also probably some of the people are putting in their responses with regards to closing the deals. Yes, so lead generation, maturing these deals, and keeping connect with your customer is very important. As Arvind, you mentioned that probably you have to pursue these deals, and how long does it take for you to close out on these deals. I would like to, as a follow-up question, would like to briefly understand from you is how do you maintain those connects, because some of these deals you probably be chasing for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years as well before they get matured. So how do your teams stay connected to your customer? What do you do in these lean period, then when you don't have nothing major to sell? What do you do, and what do your teams do?
No, I think that's a great question, and I think that's the difficult part also to manage these customers. See, the good thing about working with a company like Philips is it's not like you sell only one product to a customer. You're selling multiple products to the same customer, right? You might sell ultrasound tomorrow. You might sell a patient monitor. A radiologist also uses an MR equipment. And the way I look at it is during these customer engagement points, the touch points, it's very important that you are part of that conversation also, or you are part of the sales team. I take a lot of pride today when someone in the cardiology team comes and asks me, hey, can you talk to this cardiologist and help us close a cath lab? It's been about 3 years since I moved to the ultrasound team, but I take a lot of pride because these are customer connects that I built over a long time, and there's a lot of loyalty, there's a lot of credibility in these customer connects, right? So the number one thing is, it's important that the best customer relationships are built when there is no need, when there is no requirement for a deal. And in my experience, the best customer relationships are actually built when the customer is most angry with us. I'll be very honest. The reason I'm saying that is because it's when the customer is most unhappy with you, and when you handhold that customer during that time, you build a lot of loyalty. When the customer is unhappy and you bail out, you're never going to build relationships. You're never going to build. It's going to be transactional always. And so today, when I look back at my list of customers who I've had the strongest relationships in the country, these have always 100% been the customers who were most unhappy with Philips. But when they called, I made sure that we supported them. We handheld them. A system could have been broken. Our service team was there right away. Maybe they did not get the output from their system the way they expected. Our clinical team was there right away. Maybe Philips had promised them something and we did not live up to our commitment, and we made sure I was there in front of them to make sure that we live up to our commitments. So a lot, the way I look at this is I put myself as a customer in front of the guys who come and sell to me. And I don't look for someone who's going to call me up every week and say, how are you? How are you doing? Or say, how, right? I don't need that. But I certainly require one thing. When I face a problem, I don't like seeing a black screen behind my salesperson. And that's where a lot of us fail. Because what happens is we tell the customer, I'll come back to you 2 days. The customer has no clue what's happening behind you in those 2 days, right? And for me, there's a lot of value when I call up that customer proactively and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. It is stuck right now with finance approval. I want to get this for you. It's going to take some time, but I will try to get it in 2 days, right? At least the customer knows I'm trying my best. And I found that that really helped me. And once I got through those situations, once I built that customer connect, I just personally make it a point to call the customer once in a quarter. That's it. How are you doing, ma'am? How are you doing, sir? It's been a long time. Are you okay? Is everything going well? Just wanted to catch up, say hi to you. Because that's how you build strong relationships. Not when they have a need. And when they have a need, I promise you, they will come to you first. They will call you first, right? Because they trust you. And I tell this to my team very often. People don't buy a product because of the brand always. Today, if you look at products between Philips, GE, and Siemens, I'll be very honest, the products are very similar. You look at a stent, you look at a pacemaker between Boston, St. Jude, and Medtronic, they're all very similar today, right? Most are MRI compatible. Some say I have longer life, battery life. Some say I have so much life, easier to deploy, and so on. But in general, most of these products are very similar. But the reason the customer signs the PO is because of the name behind the PO, not necessarily because of the company. And I keep telling this, I keep reminding my team, the customer trusts the sales guy behind that PO. He signs the PO because he knows that salesperson will be a service person, will be a salesperson, will be a clinical person when the time comes. And, tough times are bound to happen. Let me tell you this. I'm going to reiterate this again, but there is guaranteed that your product will fail when you sell to a customer. It's guaranteed. In fact, research has shown customer loyalty is higher when your product fails and you support the customer than when your product doesn't fail. Because if your product doesn't fail, most probably you're not meeting the customer. The customer is not calling you. They've lost loyalty somewhere. Somewhere, someone over the next 3-4 years has gone and met that customer, and the customer wants to give that person a chance. But if that product fails, and if he's called you and you have supported him or her, that loyalty is much, much, much higher. So this is very important for everyone to know. Customer loyalty is built because of failures. Because when this product you've sold has failed, the customer calls you and you have to be that person who supports that customer during that time. Customer loyalty is also destroyed when the product fails. Because when the product fails and you are not there to support that customer, the loyalty is destroyed forever. They don't have any more loyalty towards you. So that's very important to remember. So when a customer calls me with an escalation, I dive deep. It's tough. I'll be honest. It is tough because the customer probably is not in the mood to listen. They don't want to rational. They don't want to listen to rationale. But you will have to handle that customer during this time. And when you survive that, it's the best customer relationships you build. What's also important is a lot of times this comes back to victim mindset. A lot of times we say, "Oh, I cannot solve the customer mindset. I cannot solve the customer's problem. It's a service problem. It's a finance problem. It's someone before me who did this commitment and they've left, and now it's my problem, but it's not my fault." Guys, that will never work. That will never work. The buck stops with you always. If you are in that role and the customer has called you, it's your responsibility to build or create that escalation within the organization so that you are heard. It's your responsibility to go back to the customer and proactively tell them, "Listen, I'm trying my best. I'm not getting the support, but I will do this for you." And if you do that, I think you build a lot of loyalty, and that's what's worked for me, and that's what I would advise to everyone else. If you do that, you don't need to maintain calls on a weekly basis with these customers. They become your friends.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful insight. A lot of us try to kind of pray that our products do not fail, but the insight which you gave is that your product failure, your technology failure is actually your chance to build the loyalty for your customers toward your organization. So that's a wonderful insight. So guys, please putting in your experience, if you have had faced any product failure in your career so far, and how was your experience in dealing with those product failure, how did you come out, and how it helped you or it kind of destroyed your relationship. So whatever it is, just keep typing in the chat window so that we know about your experience as well. So moving on from here, Arvind, I think there are a lot of questions on the YouTube. So let me, and these are probably related to this sales funnel management which you have discussed so far. So I thought let's take those relevant questions which you have received so far with regards to the funnel management. So there is one question from Mayank Verma on the cold calling perspective. So he's asking, cold calling a big task, and how to cover big territories and do a successful cold calling to develop great prospect.
What is the last word? To develop a great?
Great prospects. So how do you
Okay.
do cold calling if there is a larger geography, larger territories to cover for
Yeah.
salespeople?
My great question, and that's something that we actually did quite well this year within the Philips ultrasound team. So I'll give you some background. In Q1, end of March, we looked at the data. We looked at the funnel Q1 2019 in our SFDC versus Q1 2020. And I saw that the number of customers we met in Q1 2020 was actually lesser than the number of customers we met in Q1 2019. And this happened for various reasons, which I'm not going to get into. But the end goal was that we had not seen enough customers. And then COVID hit us. In March 23rd, we went into a lockdown. COVID hit us, which meant that not a single salesperson could go and meet their customers. And this put a lot of pressure on our business, right? If you are in a B2B business, if you're not in front of your customer, it's very difficult for you to actually generate these leads. It's very difficult for you to cold call. So what we did was we completely pivoted. We reorganized the way we worked. And what we did was every Thursdays I set up a call with the sales team members, with the regional managers. And I shared I shared two sets of databases. One is I shared the install base of all Philips products, ultrasound products, to the entire sales team. And I talked about 9,000 boxes being sold. We have close to about 15,000 ultrasound systems in the country, right? I shared that entire install base to our team. And I said, the first thing we do is a lot of these products are coming to end of life, which means they've been installed for about 10 years, they've been installed for 9 years. Call up all these customers today. Call them up and ask them if we can replace their system. Just have a conversation on how they're dealing with COVID. What are the challenges they're facing? But see if you can actually leverage this install base to call these customers up. The second thing we did is we reached out to the marketing team. And the challenge that I posed to the marketing team was, can we do as many webinars, education programs as possible for our customers? And similar to what Pankaj is doing beautifully here every Sundays, We did this every day where we brought a doctor and we told them to present on ultrasound. And we did this for 90 days from April 1st until the end of June. We did this every day. We did one webinar per day. Some days we went to two webinars. And we could actually collect a lot of data. A lot of doctors, we were averaging close to about 500, 600 doctors attending every day. And on weekends, we were going up to 1,500 doctors, right? Because even doctors wanted to learn during this time. And they saw Philips as coming and giving them, being a clinical partner and giving them value from a clinical perspective. So when they started seeing that we were doing a webinar and presenting on unique cases and doctors, their peers coming and presenting, they came and started attending. And all of a sudden, within about 2-3 months, I had a database of close to 20,000 doctors, right? Who had attended my Zoom meetings, who would put in their emails, who would put in their contact numbers, which I again shared with my team. And I said, hey guys, this is a great way for us to actually reach out to our doctors who like what we're presenting. Ask them what is it that, are they looking to replay the system? Are they looking to buy a system, right? And so we did this, we did 100 webinars in 100 days in Q2. And what I think I'm personally most happy about is that we were seen as a very neutral partner to our doctors. There were a lot of doctors who came and told me, Arvind, you don't talk about Philips. And I said, I don't want to talk about Philips. I want people to come and learn here, right? So to Mayank, see if you can also add value to your customers. Go out to your territory, ask customers, hey, can you do a webinar for me? And send that out, send a WhatsApp out to all the doctors and see if you can get about 50 to 100 doctors attending in your territory. That's a great install base for you to reach out to. The one feedback that I got from my sales team was a lot of times doctors did not have my sales team numbers on their phone, right? They didn't have their numbers. But ever since we started doing webinars, they stored the numbers because they started messaging them, asking them, when is the next webinar happening? Tell me when is the next webinar. So all of a sudden, doctors were storing my sales team numbers also, right? We started building relationships with our customers. We started building relationships with our competitive install base, with customers who are not even Philips, but just wanted to attend our webinars. And I've had numerous cases where sales team and clinical team called me and said, Arvind, now this doctor started calling me. I did not even know they stored their number. And this is a great way for us to cold call. Ask these customers, are you looking to buy something? And it comes back to the concept of visibility. I'll tell you this, we had a visibility of approximately 48% in ultrasound. We are now at a visibility of 65%, only in Q2. And we did not meet a single doctor face-to-face. My team has not met a single doctor face-to-face in Q2, and our visibility has gone to 65%. Only because we did cold calling. How did we cold call? Each salesperson in Philips went and looked up the install base. Each salesperson forwarded the WhatsApps for all the webinars that we did, and in turn called up those doctors and said, how do you like our webinar? Oh, by the way, are you interested in buying an ultrasound system? Right? And doctors stored our numbers as well. So there's a lot of things. I'm just giving one example, but there's a lot of things that we can do in cold calling. Doctors today are more receptive to talk to people, but they don't want to talk only about deals on calls. Don't become, and I'm going to be honest here, and I might sound stupid, but I don't see our business as being a credit card caller or a bank caller asking for a loan. That's not how I view my sales team calling up doctors. We have to show them value. And by showing value, we should not call up and ask for, are you interested in buying a system? Did you like my webinar that I posted? Is there another topic that I can talk about next week? Can I get another doctor? Do you have a doctor? Do you want to present on my webinar? Right? And by the way, are you interested in buying an ultrasound system? Because then the conversation becomes much, much different than calling up a doctor and saying, are you interested in buying an ultrasound? So there are numerous ways to do it, but I think that's the way that's worked for us at Philips. And hopefully, if you guys are able to show value to your customers, something different from what you do in your day-to-day business, I think that can go a long way in making sure that you become the star salesperson in your company next year.
Absolutely. And I think the sentiments are similar to what you said in terms of cold calling. So Nadir has made one comment on YouTube. He's watching on YouTube live. So he's saying calling, never pitch directly for sales. So try to do a little bit research about the customer, about the doctor, and it will help you a lot. And so that's it about the cold calling. Thank you so much for explaining it beautifully on how you can not directly talk about selling your devices, but actually adding value to your customer. That will help you in the long run. So thank you so much, Arvind, for kind of discussing this. And now moving on to the next topic, because a lot of people are interested to break into this industry, and a lot of us are from different backgrounds, maybe from medical devices, pharmaceuticals, FMCG, all of it. So what is happening nowadays in the COVID era? What are the some of the hiring or recruitment trends which you see in medical equipment industry? And what do you see, like if there are other questions as well, like if somebody is coming from pharmaceutical medical device background, how they can actually break into this industry?
Yeah. So despite COVID happening, which was very unfortunate, I think one of the industries that can, I believe that even in war there are winners. One of the industries that has actually not faced such a big impact is the healthcare industry. There are parts of healthcare industry. Let me put it this way: it's a mixed bag. There are parts of the healthcare industry that's taken a big beating because, for example, elective procedures are not being done. Patients are not coming in to do their normal checkups, their routine heart checkups or body checkups. So there are the diagnostic industry, there are the cardiovascular industry that's taking a beating. There is the whole emergency intensive care industry that's blown through the roof because of this, right? Now, the way I look at this, and then I come to the question on, you know, was your question also on how to break in, or was it more of what do I think will happen?
Yeah, both. One is on the recruitment or the hiring trends currently, and how do you see it evolving in the future? And second is obviously for people from different backgrounds, not the medical equipment backgrounds, how they can actually break into this industry.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So the first question is the different trends. Like I said, I think it's a mixed bag. There are some parts of the industry that's done really well, some parts of the industry that's not done really well. But here's what I think will happen next year. I think I already see a huge influx of investments that the hospitals are taking now in building up their infrastructure for next year. I think the number of greenfield projects have increased quite tremendously. The number of multimodality projects, and what I mean by that is when we sell an ultrasound with a cath lab or ultrasound with an MR, we did not see that in the first half of the year. Those have started increasing quite tremendously, which means that hospitals are willing to make some large investments as well. And I believe that there's a huge pent up demand as well. I mean, the cancer patients have not gone anywhere. The cardiovascular patients have not gone anywhere. They're going to come back, right? And then there is the part of pent up demand, but there is also the whole part of the COVID related ailments that I'm talking about, right? Where it's not just COVID anymore, but there are a lot of extensions that these people have gone into hospital, got themselves checked, and they've realized there are a lot of other extensions of diseases that they've now got, which they need to correct as well, which they need to treat. So in terms of the healthcare, I think next year is going to be a huge, huge year. Of course, the vaccine has to come out, and we are all optimistic about the vaccine coming in. But I tell you what, I think even if there is signs that the vaccine is heading in the right direction, if they're through the phase 3 trials and it's only commercialization, I think the sentiment alone will pick up the entire economy to a large extent. People will at least know that the future is a little more stable than what it is right now. Today, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're not sure if we should invest. But if they know that the vaccine is going to come out, let's say in June or July, the fact that that's going to come out itself will create a very positive sentiment, and that will bring it up. So I think healthcare industry next year is perhaps the best industry, the sunshine industry to be in, despite COVID happening. So for all of you in the healthcare industry, in sales or clinical or any other thing, I think you guys are in the right space. But I'll also add a caveat. I always say this: it's one thing to be in a sunshine industry, but it's another thing to be in a role that you love, that you really like. Uh, Solar is a sunshine industry. Healthcare is a sunshine industry. Electric vehicles is a sunshine industry. But if you don't like your role, it doesn't matter if it's a sunshine industry. You're going to be crappy all the time, right? So that's I'm assuming that all of you are happy in your roles and you like what you're doing. You like being in healthcare. So that answers the part of what I think will happen next year. There are going to be some changes. There is going to be some more turbulence, but certainly there's going to be an explosion in the investments that are going to come in, and also in terms of the diagnostic capabilities of these hospitals. And I see that happening already. A lot of hospitals are investing with that future in mind. Now, what does it take to break into the industry? Now, that's a tough thing, I'll be honest. And the reason I say tough is because I see that a lot of times in the medical equipment industry, people are poaching from another medical equipment industry, right? I think the skill set I talked about, marketing, financial, high calling, right? This skill set is a very unique skill set, and they keep poaching. But I'll tell you what, and that's where I stop it tough, because personally, in my mind, I think that is stopping today. That is going away. Because what I've realized is that it takes much, much longer for a salesperson to develop when they're only going between 3, 4 companies, right? One company invests them and bring them to a certain level. Then they go to another company, certain level. Then they go to another company, certain level. But when I see guys from medical device industries or pharma industries, I see that the potential to grow is quite phenomenal because they come with a very, very unbiased attitude. If I go to another company selling ultrasound, I know I go with a lot of bias. I go with a lot of baggage. I don't know if I will be able to disrupt the growth in the company. I will perhaps give incremental growth, right? And that's what I see within the sales team as well. So while that is a trend that has been happening for a long time, it's important that the salespeople in this call understand that that trend is also changing. It is going to change eventually. It's going to take a little longer for it to change completely. But while that is changing, it's you as a salesperson in pharma or medical device need to understand how the medical equipment industry works. And if you go back to my days when I got the job in Medtronic, I wasn't waiting for that interview to understand how drug-eluting stents are sold. I knew about drug-eluting stents much before I actually did that interview. So I ask for everyone here to go back and ask about how do you give in your product if a customer comes and says, I want 5% interest rate tomorrow, or if a customer comes and says, I want extended warranty, or if a customer comes and says, I will use your product, but if that product, if I use your, I will use that product. If that product is a success, if there's no failure, I will pay you. If not, I will not pay you. These are challenging questions. But how will you face those questions? How will you answer them? One. Second, how will you go and have a conversation with your customers asking them, hey, next year, this is perhaps one of the trends that I see will happen. How is the customer preparing for this trend? What are you doing today? Is there something that I can add value for you to prepare towards this trend, right? And the last most important is relationship building. Ask yourself, can you talk to someone outside of only your end user? You go every day to a lab, you go every day to the hospital, you ask your end user to use your product, and then you leave. But next time you go to that hospital, can you meet a doctor from a different department? Can you meet the head of purchase and say, hey, you know what? I just wanted to give you a report. My doctor has used 100 stents in the last 2 months, and he's really happy with it. I just thought I'd come and tell you proactively. I wanted to let you know this, right? If you can do that, you're building a relationship today with the purchase head, who is the sole decision maker in buying our equipments. I'll tell you this, in equipments, the decision-making power is moving more and more away from the end user. It's moving towards the purchase head. It's moving towards the CEO, because these are large investments. These are 4 crores, 5 crores, right? They're looking at ROI, and they're not looking at which specific user wants to use it. So you need to develop those relationships with those doctors or with those purchase heads and C-suite level. If you've done that, I think you're ready. You're ready to work in the medical equipment industry. If you have a good understanding of the marketing that you can do, financial solutions, and of course, develop relationships with the higher end people, I think that's a great way for you to get ready for medical equipment. And don't do this until you have the interview. Do this today, because I tell you this, when I interview people, I actually call up their referrals. And I hope their referrals are not just doctors. If their referrals are doctors, then I know they're only meeting doctors. They're not going to add a lot of value. I hope their referrals are purchase heads. I hope their referrals are hospital owners. And for me, that's a very, very important part of recruiting. So we've hired a lot of people. A lot of people who've joined us in Philips recently are from J&J, and these people are doing very well in our company. We've hired people from dental companies. We've hired people from FMCG industries. In my team, we've hired from FMCG. And because the way I look at it is, I'll give you my thought process why we hired this particular individual from FMCG. Because this FMCG industry is largely channel driven. And this particular product portfolio I wanted him to manage was channel driven, right? So I believe that he brings a lot more value in channels than what anyone else from an equipment industry could bring for me. He knows how to manage the channels much better. So those are the aspects that we see. We're becoming more and more open in recruiting and hiring people. A great example is the head of sales for Philips today, for all markets, not just for India, for all markets, has joined us from Cisco, because we realize it's going more and more towards solutions, towards artificial intelligence, towards remote monitoring, and Cisco are market leaders in that, right? So the industry is opening up quite a bit for people who want to come and join the equipment industry or who want to join Philips. I look for a lot of perseverance. I look for very good attitude. And of course, when they come to interview, I look for examples of what they've tried to do to break into the equipment industry, not for what they've done in the device industry. They could be superstars in device, but I'm looking for what have they done to try to gain experience in the equipment industry. And if you have those skill sets, I think sky is the limit. You can join the equipment industry any day.
Right. Thank you so much, Arvind, for explaining these things. And there are a lot of questions with regards to this. I think a lot of questions have been answered till now. The one question is related to similar question is from Shubham is there. He is from pharma sales background, and he is asking what he can do to gain exposure to make his selection in the device company. I think you have already answered those questions. So I believe what you can do today, as Arvind mentioned, are you doing today to get exposure of your next job is what matters the most. And it's not when the interview is going to happen, then you from that day you start preparing. It's the what you can do today, as Arvind mentioned. Thank you so much, Arvind. And the skill set which you mentioned is managing specific, having those specific skills by which you can add value to your prospective employer is the things which you should look for, and continue building those skills. Learn about equipment industry, medtech industry, medical devices, and probably you will be learning a lot about. And obviously you can watch these Sunday live shows for you to get a lot of insights, insider information, and a lot of insights about medtech industry. So moving on to one more question. I think there is one more question with regards to specific what a sales executive can do when his organization is not functioning according to the dynamics of market, where the like sometimes you get into this situation as a sales for person, like your company is probably not doing what you can see in the market happening. The dynamics are changing, but probably your company is not keeping the pace with it. Okay, so how do you manage these kind of situation when your core competitors are doing all they can do to optimize current users and to create new users for their products, but if you're not your company is not supporting you, as a sales executive, what you can do to turn the tide in your favor?
Yeah, I think that's a function of the current turbulent situation we live in. Very often, the market is changing very quickly, and it's very difficult sometimes to keep up with the market, such a disruptive or such a rapidly changing market. But what I would advise to this particular person is, I hope you've gone to your manager and told him or her that, hey, I see that the market is moving in this direction. And I think if we actually do this specific idea that we have, we could probably, tag along to this wave and we could do much better. And you should have very clear data points when you go and give this suggestion. Please don't be subjective. Don't say that this is where I think the market is and this is what I think. And, single data points won't help. Saying this particular customer told me this does not help. But if you're able to actually show that this trend has been happening over the last 2 months or 3 months, and it's clear it's happening, right? I think it's worth having a conversation with your manager and saying that I think that this trend is happening. Is it possible for us to actually make the change and do this, right? And it would add more power if you've actually experimented that change that you're talking about. Now it could be that the change you're talking about is very big. I'm hoping it's not an organizational change, because then it's going to be a very big suggestion. But if something very simple or something related to price or related to value add to the customer, you should have the conversation with the customer already and say, hey, this is what I think. If I do this, what do you think? Right? Ask the customer. And if the customer reacts in a positive manner, then you should actually go and share that learning with their manager and say, I understand that the industry is doing this, but I think we should head in this direction. And you should hear your manager out, because your manager might have a valid reason for doing what they're doing as well. And that's the conflict between a manager and the team always, right? Because the team has numerous suggestions. And for me, a very important part today in today's world is to actually talk to my team as much as possible. I don't believe in this hierarchy where it has to come up only through the managers and managers manager. But as much as possible, I make it a point to at least talk to one salesperson or one clinical person in my team who I've not spoken to in the last 1 month or 1.5 months. So that's a rigor that I maintain. But I'm hoping your manager also does that, and you have the visibility to your manager to go and talk to them about it. Now, if nothing works, um, I'm going to say this, but I don't know how it works with my team. My philosophy is I don't ask for permission, I ask for forgiveness, which means if I strongly believe in something, I will do it. And if I get a rap on my wrist, I will ask for forgiveness, saying I'm sorry, but I think I really believed in it. Now, obviously, this is not something that you go and do something very disruptive, but look at what you can change there. It comes back to that whole point of being perseverant and trying to do something that you believe in. If you can make that change, and if your manager likes what you've done, I'm telling you, you will receive a lot of recognition. That will give you a lot of confidence. That'll give you a lot of boost. And I believe that it's always important that a manager is not one person who can come and give solutions to all the problems in the company. It has to come from the bottoms up. It has to come from the sales team. It has to come from the clinical team. It has to come from the service team. So if you have an idea that you think works better than what the organization is doing, my advice is please go to your manager tomorrow. Have this conversation with your manager. Tell them why you think this is important. Ask the manager to give you an opportunity to prove it. Maybe you could do a small pilot, prove it, and that will give you that will give your manager more confidence in your abilities. But more importantly, he will see you as a very entrepreneurial person, and hopefully, when the next opportunity comes for you to grow, they will keep you in mind, because these are the moments that can change people's career when you go up and give a very strong suggestion. That's important.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Arvind, for kind of answering that question. And one more thing related to this, which you explained, is that you are trying to talk to your team members once in a month. Okay, a lot of things have changed, especially during the pandemic. So, what are the changes which I think we have already spoken a lot about the changes and what is happening nowadays, but especially in this COVID world. Okay, what are the things which have changed in the, especially when we talk about big capital equipment industry, or the spending, what is happening, and how did you manage some of these changes which you have faced in the recent past? And how did you, I think a lot of it is about, we are talking a lot about mental health nowadays, and mental health for the sales employees as well, and a lot of people probably going into the depression, fearing what will happen to their jobs because of a lot of uncertainty around it. So how did you also keep your teams motivated so that they do well on the ground?
Yeah. So I think a lot of my time today, I think I would say confidently about 40 to 45% of my time goes in only talking to people in my team. And that's a fairly large percentage, to be honest. That wasn't so high last year when everything was good. There was no complication, no problems at all. But I spent a lot of time talking to my team members during this time, because you're absolutely right. There is a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of fear in what's going to happen in the industry. And during these times, for me, I firmly believe that over communication is not a bad thing. Talk to as many people as possible. And I think it's important that your team also knows that They hear it. If there are any rumors, if there are anything, they hear it first from me. So I need to maintain that connect with my team so that the team is confident enough to call me up at any point and share any of their concerns. Sometimes it doesn't percolate down to the person you intended to go if you're sharing it to the hierarchy. So I believe in over communication during this time. So I spend a lot of time talking to people. I do one-on-one chats. I don't necessarily have town hall meetings because I mean, we do town hall meetings, but I don't think the tough questions actually come out during town hall meetings. One-on-ones, a lot more tough questions come out. The second thing is clarity of thought. It's very important that as a team leader, I don't shift or switch decisions often. It is tough sometimes. It makes it very tough for us to stay course during these times. But I think we got to keep pushing at it until we hopefully make it a success, and not switch decisions very quickly. And during these times, it's very easy because a lot of people. What I've realized personally, Pankaj, um, I I get advice from at least about 10 to 15 different people every week on how we should have done this, how we should have done that. Right. One is, um, it's good that I'm getting the advice. I really like the suggestion because I can improve next time I face a similar situation. But also, it's easy to give advice. I'm perhaps someone who gives, I don't know, maybe I'm giving advice to someone else. I'm one of the 10, 15 giving to someone else, right? But until you're in that person's shoe, until you realize the problems they're having, it's very difficult to actually go through that situation. So while I absorb all these advice, while I take a lot of suggestions that come from my team and from my peers, um, I stick to the decisions that we made and we try to push through unless we have seen that we are drastically wrong. So far, touchwood, the key metrics that we are tracking are profitability, our market share, our employee engagement score. These have been really at, at very good levels. Market share has been all-time high. Employee engagement score has been all-time high. So I believe we are heading in the right direction with the team. But what's also important is that the last thing is, during these times, it's also important that we recognize the employees. We recognize the hard work. We always, I think, as a country, we recognize outcome. We don't recognize the effort. So if someone has done a great deal, someone has done a fantastic job, we all applaud. But that one person has probably worked in 10 other deals and they failed, right? And they get that applause for one deal. And so we make it, within the people who report into me, if you look at, we have these recognition awards that come out every month. And ultrasound is the highest rewarding team in all metrics. So we recognize our team, and it's not just for outcome, but we recognize them for the efforts that they're making. Very recently, we've started I think it's a very personal, nice initiative where it's only for the our team members, where we get exactly like what you're doing, Pankaj. We get one leader from the ultrasound team to come and talk, and just talk about their life sharings, their life's failures, their challenges. But during this time, for me, it's very important that we keep the team's minds very busy. We constantly keep, either we have one-on-one chats or we do Friday town hall sessions within ultrasound. We get a leader to come and talk, share their growth journey, their growth path, or we continue recognizing them for something that they've done well. That's not to say that we don't put pressure. There is pressure because everyone has to experience pressure during this time. I think it's important that that keeps us on our toes, right? But I think most importantly at this point, we got to engage with the team. So to all the team leaders, please, the pulse of your team is more important than the pulse of your customer today. I recently attended a talk where one of the stalwarts in the industry said, I don't manage business, I manage people in today's world. And I truly believe that the culture, the people is all that we are at the end of the day, right? The OIT business profitability is a byproduct of our culture. It's a byproduct of the people we have. I don't need to tell a single person in my team what to do, but I just need to make sure that they're motivated enough to go and blow it out of the park every day. So yeah, clarity of thought, over communication is not a bad thing, and keep them busy constantly. Challenge them with different perspectives. Recognize what they're doing during these tough times. That's what's important. It's part of the paying it forward, Pankaj. We pay it forward. Hopefully, they will not deal with their team members in a bad manner. Hopefully, they will also continue motivating their team members during these times.
Right, absolutely. And I think great leadership insights. So people who are there as a people leader, it's the philosophy of like take care of your people and people will take care of your business. So don't have to worry about your business, just worry about your people. And thank you so much for Arvind for kind of sharing this wonderful leadership insights during these tough times. It's extremely important to kind of more keep your teams motivated, because that is the only asset which you have in the organization. And wonderful insights, Arvind. And I think it's been like 1 hour 45 minutes. So I'm going to take one last question from the audience. I think it is related to what we have discussed till now, is like adding value to your customer. And obviously, so Kuldeep is asking this question is, he is asking, can you please share your experience when you identified and addressed customer pain point, and what was the impact of it? Any particular example would you like to give?
When I addressed a customer pain point,
Yeah, identified and addressed. How did you do that?
there are quite a few examples. Is Kuldeep in sales?
I think Kuldeep is there. Let me ask him to unmute. Just a second. Kuldeep, probably you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Kuldeep
I
is in
have.
sales.
Yeah, probably
So,
Kuldeep, you can unmute yourself now. Yeah.
no, that's okay. I think he's in sales. He's responded saying he's in sales, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, John
so
says no.
let me then try to think of a sales example that I can give Kuldeep on how do we address a customer pain point. So Kuldeep, I'll give you an example. Quite a few years back, that's a great question, and I can't think of a big example at this point. But one thing that comes to my mind was almost a few years back when I was in the cardiology division in Philips. I was working with cath labs, and so what what we did was there was this really strong cardiologist in Kerala, and he was working with a very large hospital, and he kept I managed him because we were selling volcano systems to this customer in his hospital. I built a very good relationship with him, and then one day we started chatting, and over while we were talking on the phone, he said, Arvind, I'm thinking of starting a cath lab. Maybe I should start in my hometown. I want to go back to my hometown and start, but it's so complex. I don't know how to start this. I don't know what we're going to do. And that conversation happened, and then for the next 1 month, 1.5 months, nothing really happened. Then again, we got chatting in a conference, and he said, I'm still having that idea. We should talk about it. But I realized that while he wanted to start the cath lab, I think a couple of things were clearly missing for him. One was his funding. He was not in a position where he could invest a lot of money. The second was he continued wanting to work in the large hospital. So he wanted the best of both worlds. He wanted to work in the large hospital, and he wanted to work in his hometown. So I got talking to him, and I said, hey, how can Philips help you? We have cath labs across the product portfolio. Funding is something that we can do, but how can we help you? And what we did then, Mike, is we actually reached out to our entire cardiology database, and we have the database of all cardiologists who are using our cath labs and our volcano systems, right? And I reached out to the sales team members then, and I said, hey, do you know any cardiology who is from this particular city in Kerala who's working outside that city? And I don't know if you know the industry well, but if you look at cardiology today, a lot of cardiologists are not working in their hometown. There are guys from Coimbatore working in Delhi. There are guys from Chennai working in Kolkata, guys from Bombay working in Indore. Or Indore working in Bombay. A lot of people working in different places, right? We got a batch. We got, the sales team was fantastic. So we got a group of uh, 8 to 10 cardiologists who were from that particular location in Kerala, and they were working in different parts of the country. So I started calling each one of them. I called them and said, we have this doctor who's working. He wants to set up a cath lab. He's looking for a consultant. Do you want to go back to your hometown? Do you want to go back to where your family is? Or, and take a partnership with this doctor to set up something. And we struck gold. One of the doctors said, I want to go back and I want to actually partner. It was a very complex deal, to be honest. So we had this doctor who was actually working out of, they were working in Northeast. And he was willing to go back to Kerala. He said, I want to go back and start something. So we put him in touch with this doctor, Dr. A, who's sitting in Kerala, with Dr. B, who's sitting in Northeast. They got talking. They both decided they can start, and they set up this partnership. And then both Dr. A and B came to me and said, hey, we can't afford your cath lab, but we want to buy your cath lab. I went to a company which a lot of you might know. I went to a company called Merrill Life Sciences. The reason I know them is because we took over Volcano from them. They were the pan-India distributors for India, pan-India distributors for Volcano before we acquired Volcano. I knew the leadership team in Merrill quite well. I said, hey guys, are you willing to partner with them? Are you Medtronic does this beautifully. Are you willing to see if we can do some sort of a pay-per-use program between Philips, Merrill, and that the doctor? So we actually set up a separate entity. Now, this is a complex deal. Like I said, maybe I should think of something else. But since you asked for sales, the customer's pain point clearly was he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He just wanted to be, but he loved the luxury of working in the large hospital. So he wanted a consultant in his hospital. He was willing to put in 70% of the infrastructure, the investment. So we brought in a doctor for him. It just so happened that we were in the right place because we knew all the cardiologists were using our cath labs, and we knew which place they were from. Because the minute I called my sales team and asked them, they know everything about the cardiologist, right? Similar to what all you guys must be doing. If someone calls up your doctor, you will know where your doctors are from. You will know what takes them, what drives them. So we brought this doctor back from Northeast. We brought him to Kerala. It's a lovely partnership. That deal is still going on. They went on to buy the second cath lab. They set up the second cath lab in Kerala as well. And they bought both the cath labs from Philips. The first was done through this tripartite agreement between Philips, the doctors, and Merrill. They made enough money for the second, where they invested on the cath lab on their own, and they didn't have to. They did not need Philips or Merrill. But I think, in hindsight, looking back, I think what really helped me was the doctor was willing to trust in me, in sharing with me his key challenges. A lot of times, if you go today, the doctors will say, I can't afford your product, give a cheaper price, give a lower price. And then we are only addressing the symptom. We are not addressing the root cause, which is price. But if we are able to understand a little better on, what really takes them, what is their challenge, then I think it makes for a much deeper relationship. And again, ask yourself today, if a car sales guy comes and wants to sell a car to you, if he gives a discount, would you buy a car? And I will tell you, there's 90% in this audience will not buy a car, even if he gives a discount. And the reason is because we're all uncertain about our future. We're not sure if we'll have jobs 6 months down the line. Should I put a car investment and take an EMI now? I'm not sure. I might be in the market for a car. He might come and give me a buyback value for my existing car and say, I'll give you a super value for your car. I'll give you a super discount. Will you still buy it? I don't think so. Because we're not sure if we're going to continue with our jobs. We're not sure if we're going to be in the same place next year by now. So that's the car sales guy is addressing my symptom. But the root cause, he's not addressing my fear, right? And this is a fear that is genuine. I don't know how you can address the root cause. So unless a car sales guy, and I don't know if you guys have watched the Hyundai marketing initiative, but Hyundai came up with a super marketing initiative where they said, if you lose your job in the next 6 months, you can come back and return the car. No questions asked. Your credit history will not be impacted. They rolled out this program, and Hyundai is the only car company that has grown by 13% in the US when every other car company has tanked in market share. Ford has degrown, GM has degrown, Toyota degrew. Hyundai grew because they came up with this lovely assurance program where they said, if you lose your job in the next 6 months, return your car, no questions asked. They addressed the root cause. While every other company went after giving discounts, Hyundai went after the root cause and said, and so a lot of people took the cars. They did not lose their jobs in 6 months. So Hyundai actually made a killing. They sold a lot of cars. They took a bet, but a lot of people did not lose their jobs. And so that's what I would do if I were, and I think that's what we did with that customer, right? We had that relationship. We went after the root cause and we tried to address it. So you should do that same thing, Kuldeep. Look at your customer pain points, but don't focus on symptoms. See if you can actually address the root cause. If you do that, the deal for sure, guaranteed, is always going to be yours. It's not going to be anyone else's.
Right. Thank you so much for kind of sharing this beautiful story from your own experience, and obviously understanding your customer is and trying to identify the root cause of the problem. I think that will go a long way. And the way beautiful example from car sales, you Hyundai, I think that was bang on the point we were trying to make, is understanding the pain points of the customer is extremely important for you to able to make sales and killing in the marketplace. So thank you so much. I think it's been almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
So Arvind, for giving a lot of insights, and I made a lot of notes. Okay, starting from the mistakes which you made, not getting into the victim mindset. Obviously, keep playing your A game every single time, and obviously keep exploring the opportunity. You also talked about the skill set part of it is like more of decision making is getting into the hands of purchase managers, owners, CEO of the hospital, and it is not the end user only to whom which you have to engage. So yeah, skills like finance, marketing, understanding the customer's pain point is extremely important. And as beautifully explained by you, the entire sales funnel management process, I think that was kind of I got my money by investing these 2 hours listening to you. And I'm sure all of the people who are still there on Zoom, as well as people who are there on YouTube, just type in your type in your experience of what you did, what were your key takeaways from this session, and we would love to hear your comments. Yeah, a lot of learnings today. Thank you so much, Kuldeep. So guys, keep putting in, and if you are new here, and you can also go back if you missed, you joined in between, you can go back. This session will be available as a recorded session on my YouTube channel, The Bright Orbit, and you can also watch the other insightful sessions which you have done till now. And next week, so same time next week, next Sunday, we will be here with another guest and talk about another aspect. So once again, thank you so much, Arvind, for joining in today's show. And it was pleasure listening to you, and I personally learned a lot about medical equipment industry, and obviously the key things which can help any person become successful sales professional or successful person in his or her career. Thank you so much, Arvind, for spending your time.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you for inviting me for this talk. Really, really great experience. Enjoyed it. I've attended your talks, and I can promise you I will attend your next talk as well. There's a lot of
Thank
learnings
you.
for me in these talks. Thank you
Thank you
again
so
for
much.
giving me this
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you so much everyone who are here, still here. Thank you so much for spending these 2 hours with me on a Sunday, and that too on a holiday. So wish you a happy Dasara once again, and see you next Sunday 5 o'clock with another exciting sessions. So till then, bye bye. Take care. Have a good meal and take proper rest. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye bye.